So this has been done to save the government billions, it says. We don't know exactly, but the Treasury bucket, which identifies where this comes from, is the unallocated operating contingencies, which over the next 4 years was budgeted back in the budget in May last year at $17 billion. That's, not coincidentally, just a little bit more than the $14 billion for the tax cuts. This government, with this action, is passing retrospective legislation under urgency that rips up effectively contracts or promises that a previous national government helped commit to. And we included in today's kaka a lovely picture of Christine Bartlett and Mr. Coleman, a Minister of Labour at the time, signing that agreement. I listened to those speeches in Parliament from Nicola Willis and Erica Stanford. And when I saw this, I thought, who swallowed the dead rat here? But then, of course, Nicola Willis had to feed herself the dead rat because of her commitment to the budget rules. And this, I think, because it alienates such a wide swathe of what you call middle New Zealand. I perhaps a little insultingly describe this group as the netball mums. The netball mums of New Zealand, I think, will see this and think, that's not fair. That's not right. That's going to hurt. My mum in the aged care centre is going to struggle now because those people looking after her are going to be less well paid. The people I know working 2 or 3 jobs are going to be less well paid. And why? So landlords with 20 houses can get that little bit more and they can have a sea legs instead of a basic boat. It just looks mean. And the thing about this is that it's quite in contrast to the previous national government under John Key, Bill English, and actually signed that deal and helped vote through that original pay equity legislation. They knew where the centre was. They knew when they were making big tax changes that they had to at least pretend and try to make it distributionally neutral. That's what the tax switch was. These guys, right from the start, didn't even pretend. This was shifting money from poor people who can't afford it to rich people who don't need it. This pay equity deal was never talked about in the election, and essentially it is one of the darkest fruits of the government ceding control of large parts of the cabinet to an extremist party who most national voters didn't want to see in and didn't need to be there because Christopher Luxon didn't need to give them all of those cabinet positions. I think this is the moment, in a similar way to Labour's Auckland COVID shutdown moment, when suddenly a big chunk of the population saw this and thought, that doesn't feel right. That's not right. I don't like this. And I think come the polls, and they've already been quite weak for the government in recent months, people are going to see that the National Party has tied itself, has lashed itself to act, and is going down because it is now the nasty party. In the same way that the National Party from 1990 to at least 1993 was seen as the nasty party. And the common line between that National Party in 1990 to 1993 was an approach to the budget, which you could argue back then was necessary. You know, the government and the nation was in fiscal strife and things needed to be done. Now, I disagree with what was done and how it was done, but you could argue then there was some sort of crisis to deal with. Painting our current fiscal situation and our debt situation as a crisis is just plain ludicrous and financially wrong. Ask any bond fund manager and ratings agency manager, and they will say to Nicola Willis and Ian Rennie, the Treasury Secretary, bullshit. And they'll do it by offering 4 times the amount of bonds that are being sold in each auction. And I think that this week the government guaranteed itself at least a very tough fight at the next election and will probably lose it. And I think it's the moment when, in the next few weeks, as the netball mums get in touch with their national MPs and go, what's going on here? Why are you letting
netball
Brooke
mums,
Van Velden?
Jesus Christ!
Why are they letting Brooke Van Velden and David Seymour, those dickheads, run this government, which I thought was a centrist, sensible
Bernard,
government.
before I ask Melissa to come in and comment on your soliloquy, because she's a very rare guest that's been allowed to stay on while you talk your stream of consciousness or unconsciousness. No, in this case, it's a stream of consciousness. But Bernard, you think this will also actually add up to a positive for ACT and a negative for National, right?
Yeah, maybe at the margins, but it doesn't matter. And in a way, it didn't matter when the government was formed. ACT didn't matter when the government was formed. It was never going to join Labor and create a government. And National did not understand that it had the power to marginalise ACT. Instead, Christopher Luxon chose, for his own reasons, time. I want to be Prime Minister a week or two earlier, and to be nice and have a supposed united coalition government. And this is something that John Key and Bill English did not do. And they did not hand the keys to ACT last time. Now, ACT had a few more MPs this time, but it wasn't unnecessary. And the same with New Zealand First. At Labor, unlike back in 2009, New Zealand First had a real option of joining Labor. This was never the case this time. And so I think that this is the ultimate fruit of that bad piece of political decision-making, bad judgment by Christopher Luxon. And the reason is he has bad judgment and he doesn't connect to New Zealanders.
But he's coming on next week, right?
Melissa, keep asking, it hasn't happened, no.
Would you please just respond? Because we very seldom have guests on at this point where Bernard is, but I thought yours was particularly relevant to this since you are the Tom Skinner of 2025.
Look, I feel very privileged to have been allowed to stay on. I completely agree, Bernard, particularly with your political analysis about what this means for National for the next election. I think the election campaign's just started. There's no one that I've spoken to who's involved in this space who hasn't already connected the dots to the election next year. People are already looking ahead, like, what do we do? The only thing no one expects to be able to convince them really otherwise to go back, because we know the reasons that they've made this decision. So and like, obviously we're going to try and convince them of the fact that this is a horrific mistake and they need to reverse it. But if they're not going to do it ahead of the election, then we're just going to have to replace them with somebody who will. And everybody who is angry about this is joining those dots. And I think you're absolutely right that, we have been approached by a number of community groups, a number of really prominent women in New Zealand who have also been working on this for a long time. There's a lot of dames who are really annoyed at this. And there's a lot of women who are from the, business perspective as well, who, they might come from, a different place politically to the union movement, but they are feminist and they have a sense of fairness when it comes to the stuff. And they were really happy to see the pay equity legislation passed, and they're really pissed about what has happened now. And they are absolutely going to be lending their voices to this fight as well. I mean, I completely agree that, National did not have to do this. They have, they've chosen.
You mean National did not have to do the coalition, or did not have to do this, what they've done yesterday?
Well, no, I mean, I
overnight.
agree with Bernard with your analysis about like how much they gave away to ACT in the coalition negotiations, but they didn't have to make the changes that they did. I mean, maybe from a fiscal perspective to balance their budget.
There's no good fiscal reason for it.
Because of the choices that they have made themselves as well, right? And I think that you're absolutely right that they've just bought themselves a massive fight at the next election. I know a lot of people from a lot of different corners of New Zealand who are coming out, who are getting in touch with us and saying, how do we help? What do we do? We're wanting to do this. We've got this idea for this action. Everyone is mobilized by this idea because of the anger that's been felt, and there's no way that goes away before the election.